Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Okay, so we have we do not quite have quorum yet, so I'm just going to give it another moment or two. Okay. All right. Actually, we do have quorum just because of now the our numbers have dwindled with some recent departures. So we are now at quorum. So let me say good morning to everybody. Bring us to order. I'm Jonathan Crooms with Durham County Veterans Services and chair of the Performance Management Subcommittee. Thank you to everybody for being here for February's meeting. We've got another full meeting schedule as always, so we'll go ahead and we'll jump right in. First order of business is public comment period. As I mentioned during our last meeting, I'm going to be trying to introduce this in so that to encourage more participation from folks who are not formally committee members, but maybe in the public or just in the COC who are attending the meeting. Do we have anybody who would like to make a public comment at this time? Okay, so no public comment. We'll go ahead and move on to the review of November 2022 and January 2023 minutes. Before I jump into that, just to let you know, I'm still working on the December 2022 minutes. That was the first and only meeting where we had our colleague Danielle as the secretary, and she's just been incredibly busy with her transition. So I am working with her to get those minutes, and we'll get those to us hopefully soon. But we do have November and January's to take a look at. So does anybody have any changes or edits that they would like to make?
Jonathan, for the January minutes, it does not have me as being in attendance. I was present.
Okay. So sorry about that. I've got you on there now. Okay. I have a couple. Yep, go ahead, Lloyd.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Jonathan. I had sent you a couple typo corrections. I think on the January minutes, NCCEH was in the acronym was spelled NCEEH, and I corrected that. Andrea Carey's name was missing an E. I think more substantially, there was an incomplete sentence regarding the performance measure reporting, and I added some text for that if you want to share that with the committee.
Yep, thank you, Lloyd. So on number 7 in the January minutes, Lloyd has submitted a correction here, so it should read as follows. CDD staff member Melissa Hernandez provided a brief update on first collection of data from Durham's homeless housing and street outreach projects. And then I, of course, will correct the typos as well. On the November minutes, I have a correction there. I was not present, which is why Shantae, which is why Shay Kennard, our then secretary, was chairing the meeting. So I will make that correction. Any other corrections? Okay. In that case, if there are no other suggested edits, I am happy to entertain a motion to adopt or approve these minutes with the suggested changes.
I move to adopt the minutes with the suggested changes as we discussed.
Okay, thank you, Drew. We have a motion from Drew Woden to adopt both sets of meetings with the suggested changes. Do we have a second?
Second it.
And who was the second there? I missed it.
Sorry. Yes, I'll second it.
Okay, all right. And a second from Tracy. Any further discussion? Okay, if you all would vote yes, no, or abstain in the chat box. Okay. Okay, terrific. Thank you, everybody, for that. Moving right along, I am going to make another call for a secretary. We are still without a secretary and could really use one. I'd like to just ask if there is anybody else who might have given some thought to possibly filling this position for us for the rest of the year. You know, essentially the main thing is being able to take minutes for each of these meetings and then provide them to me so that I can distribute them, you know, with the next meeting agenda and other supporting materials. Is there anybody on the committee that might be willing to fulfill this role? Well, keep thinking about it. I won't give up. Keep thinking about it. I know everybody has a lot of commitments, so I know that what you give to the committee is already, you know, a lot. So consider it. If you know, there's always an opportunity to step up if you change your mind. So we'll move on to the next item here, which is a call for participation in the 2023 spring COC evaluation. So right now it's just myself and Janine Gordon. We really ideally like to have 3 to 5 folks on the panel. I will say this time, because we are doing the cross COC housing evaluation, there isn't going to be that component of the spring evaluation. So in my opinion, there's much less work this time around to do this. Is there anybody else that, you know, currently on the committee who would be willing to be on the scoring panel for the spring?
Jonathan, I had a question.
Sure.
Given that if we're going through the same similar process as we've done in the past, if your organization is applying for funds, would that pose a conflict of interest? And so that's why I'm wondering, given the number of organizations represented, I don't know how many of us from this committee could possibly do it.
Okay. Yeah, certainly if your organization's up for funds, yeah, that would make a conflict of interest. Good question. Good question. Yeah, actually, now that I'm looking at the number of members here, I think just about all of us, except for me, may have a conflict of interest. Oh, goodness. All right.
Is it possible to reach out to other subcommittees or, yeah, other subcommittees, 'cause I would think the HSAC is representative of other organizations, but, reaching out to other subcommittees that could possibly have members participate?
Yeah, and we do and we will.
Okay.
Always like to offer the, of course, being the performance management committee, always like to offer the first opportunity to do that. So thank you for reminding me that there are definitely conflicts of interest here, which is probably why folks are not stepping forward. So, but like I said, just wanted to make that offer and thank you for reminding me of that. All right. Well, we'll move. Oh, go ahead. Did I hear a? Okay, we'll move right on to the next item here, which is the HMIS NCCEH data quality plan. So you all may remember last meeting, Andrea Carey from NCCEH presented us with some suggestions on edits for the data quality plan. She has since forwarded us the document, which I sent out last Friday, and wanted to open up the floor for any further discussion or comment on this. This is an item just for committee members, since ideally we're looking to take a vote on it. So based on the document that was sent out, does anybody have any other questions about the recommendations that Andrea has made? Any concerns? So I will say, as chair, I am familiar with HMIS. I am familiar with, what is collected. I am, of course, not an HMIS user. My organization does not, to have that. So I will tell you from my perspective, as I read this plan, this sounds very reasonable. But I am, particularly eager to hear from our members who are projects, if this is reasonable from their perspective, from how they, do the data on a daily basis. Okay.
Based on the discussion last time, I do believe it's reasonable.
Okay.
Yeah, no
HMIS
concerns.
for all of our projects, so I think
Okay.
it's reasonable.
Okay. Thank you. That's helpful to hear. Again, particularly as, like I said, as chair, I'm not a HMIS user, so I really, was looking for feedback on that. So if that sounds reasonable, and there's no further discussion to be had, happy to entertain a motion to adopt the plan as presented by Andrea in the document.
Just a quick question, Jonathan.
Sure.
Our understanding, I think, in our department is that after the committee approves it, the committee forwards it to the HSAC for full approval and acceptance by the HSAC as the COC board. Is that your understanding?
I was unaware that was going up for that would need to go for full approval at the HSAC level, but that makes sense. I did not recall us discussing that during the meeting last time, so that that's new information, but it is something that it would make sense to have a big, a larger vote on, since this is something that would affect the whole COC.
Let me double check the COC governance charter.
Yeah.
I'll get back to you.
Okay. Okay. So it sounds like really the question is, we're just going to confirm whether or not it's going to go forward to HSAC. But I still think, even if we don't know that information immediately, if we feel comfortable approving the plan, then that certainly can be put on the HSAC agenda, whether it's the next meeting or the one after.
I had a quick question. 'Cause I was trying to pull it up while we were.
Sure, take your time. We have plenty of time.
Well, I was just wondering, the change around the annual report versus it being reviewed. I think it's on the second page. I think it's on the second page of the PDF.
Okay. Frequency?
Yes. Okay,
Okay,
I'm moving back and forth between a couple of screens, so forgive
that's
me.
okay.
Trying to figure out, let's see.
And I can also share and pull it up too on the screen.
Yeah, if you
That would be
could please,
helpful.
Jonathan, thank you.
Of course, of course. All right, I think we're where you were looking at here under frequency.
Mhm. It states that under this plan, the data quality reports will be submitted quarterly for year to date. Is that information funnel bubbling up to the COC to be reported to NCEH for review? I guess this is a Lord question.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think, yeah, I'm not sure that I could answer that. It does not look like Andrea is with us today on the call. Any thoughts on
Could you
that?
repeat that question so I can try to send it to Andrea to get it to her? She was double booked, so she might not be getting my messages right now.
Okay, yeah, under frequency, under 4C, it states that under this plan, the data quality reports will be submitted quarterly for year to date. Is that the COC collectively, meaning all the COC funded projects would run a report, and then the aggregate data from the Durham COC would be submitted to NCCEH? I'm just trying to understand the flow of that.
I thought this was just like for data cleanup. I thought this was more so revolving around the data cleanup. Instead of doing it annually, they would just send out like the quality reports. That was my understanding. So that's a really good question. But I thought it was just for us to clean up any errors in our data a little bit more frequently.
On a quarterly
Yeah.
basis?
Yeah, so LSA submissions wouldn't stop, but this is to help you so that when we do get to the LSA, you're not saying, okay, well, what happened in December of 2022? So you're not going back that far to try to figure it out because you went quarterly and updated that information. So it's to make it a little bit easier and less frustrating around LSA submission time. So we're trying to like breeze through it coming up. So that's what we're proposing with this.
Okay. And so each quarter, each agency is being required just to do, an assessment of their data entries in HMIS to ensure the errors are corrected, or if there are errors to kind of, go through a process of addressing those.
Yes, correct.
Okay. And would the HSAC or the Durham COC be sending out like when is that due, or do we follow back up with the Durham COC in terms of our data quality reports?
So I'm not exactly sure, but I believe I'll just say when we were speaking to other COCs, they were looking at like a little bit more flexibility with their submission times. But if if Durham COC feels that they can get it in at like a certain time and point, then we can customize that to your COC. But for currently, we're looking at quarterly, but this can change as time goes on. Yeah.
Okay. Because in the past we've done, I know we do the annual, and I think it's based on the calendar year, January to December versus August to July 30th. And so I'm just wondering, would those quarterly reports be a snapshot of the current fiscal year we're operating in to kind of look at data quality?
Yes, I believe we can do that. And I do see Lloyd's hand up too. Was it a different question or along the same lines?
No, I think the quarters would be starting October 1 through December, and then October 1 through March, October 1 through June, and October 1 through September 30th. So those would be the 4 quarters. And you're correct. I think the role of the COC probably would be primarily through the lead agency to make sure that the projects are indeed reviewing their data quality on a quarterly basis, so that we're making it easier to get accurate data submitted for the various federal reports.
Okay. All right. So so along with this, what will go before the HSAC is that it will be submitted quarterly, but then we'll later determine the dates in which those are due.
Yeah, I think the dates they're due would be up to the NCCH data center.
Okay.
I'm not sure, Daisha, if you have any information as to when they would do it. Pretty confident it would be, providing agencies at least a month after the end of the quarter to pull their reports and correct the data on a quarterly basis.
Yes, I believe we can do that. And again, all this is customizable per COC. Whatever works for your COC, we can implement. So you would just have to let us know. Again, this is the first time we're doing this stuff, so we're filling out what is working for everybody as well. So feedback is definitely wanted and needed for us to be able to improve it for you guys.
Okay. Reason I'm just asking because some of the information, I think it's good to be able to, routinely go through your data that's being entered into HMIS in order to, to address any errors or whether or not anything has, we're all human. And so making sure there's not an error in terms of just inputting something that's incorrect. However, I'm just wondering in terms of the timing for a lot of the information that the COC will have, would it be necessary to have the quarterly? For instance, we're coming up on the COC pre-approval process for projects to be eligible to submit an application once the NOFA is released. That report is that y'all were reading the mind.
Okay, and I mean, it's involved perception, it's involved.
Okay, I think we just had Angel join us, and Melissa, I don't know if you could mute her while she's getting settled in there. Go ahead, Tracy.
Yeah, I was just wondering, like, given the information we're, agencies are submitting for the pre-approval process, then once the NOVA, so some of that can kind of coincide. So know if the same information you would receive, is that a little redundant, given that it's a part of that process already? So, because I know sometimes with the APR, you're looking at just your fiscal year in terms of your program outcomes for that fiscal year. However, for the CSC pre-approval process or preliminary process before the NOVA, is the APR, I'm not sure if it's the APR or is it the calendar year of the HMIS report that's requested usually during that time?
I can take that question. Daisha can correct me. My understanding is that the data quality reports are different reports than the annual performance report or the APR. And effectively, in terms of the timing of the annual performance reports, effectively, COC funded permanent housing projects would be submitting data from an APR essentially on a quarterly basis, as it were, twice a year for the evaluation of the performance of COC funded permanent housing projects, and then on the alternate semi-annual periods for the performance on the COC's adopted performance measures, which were also on the agenda for today. So essentially we'll have a kind of a rolling performance reporting for our COC funded projects essentially every quarter. But my understanding, again, and I'm open to correction from Daisha and others at the data centers, that the data quality reports are a different report within the HMIS.
Okay, all right. I didn't
That's
know
correct,
whether,
Lloyd.
I just didn't know whether or not the same information could be gleaned from what we're already submitting.
Good question.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
I do want to come back to the question as to who offers final approval for the data quality plan. And interestingly enough, I've consulted the governance charter, and I can share that if the committee is interested. But the governance charter of the COC indicates that the Policy and Planning Committee shall jointly review, revise, and approve a privacy plan, security plan, and data quality plan for the HMIS. So I think the work of this committee perhaps is simply to review the data quality plan and then offer it to the Policy and Planning Committee for its final review and approval.
Thank you, Lloyd, for clarifying that.
Is there any interest in me sharing the my screen and the governance charter?
Sure, I'll unshare.
Let's see if I can do that. This is the governance charter. Right, so under Section 7, responsibilities of the Policy and Planning Committee. Can you see my screen, Jonathan?
I sure can.
Okay, so Section 7, responsibilities of policy and planning. Under paragraph F, joint HMIS policies and procedures. Policy and planning shall jointly review, revise, and approve a privacy plan, security plan, and data quality plan for the HMIS. So I think we just need to work with NCH and the Policy and Planning Committee to get offer this final approval. But I think it would be helpful, since the Performance Management Committee is involved with ensuring under section Section 8, performance management oversees HMIS implementation, including implementation of the data quality plan. It's appropriate, I think, for this committee to indicate that it has reviewed the proposed data quality plan and recommend its adoption by policy and planning. I apologize for any confusion on that.
No, thank you, Lloyd, for clarifying. I greatly appreciate it. Were there any other questions or comments on other parts of the data quality plan? Do we as a committee feel that we're prepared to vote and adopt the plan and thereby sending it over to policy and planning for them for their review? Or do we need more time?
I think it's fine, just with the way we do with our usage in HMIS, it seems feasible to me. Even the frequency of the data quality reports, because we have so many programs, I think that would be helpful to us to get those data quality reports quarterly as opposed to annually, so we're not going back months and months thinking what happened here, what was this error, what was this issue.
May I interpret your comments as a motion to adopt the data quality plan as presented?
I will make a motion to adopt the data quality plan as it's presented.
Okay. And do we have a second?
I second.
Okay. Second from Drew. All right. Any further discussion? Okay. If you all would, the members of the committee, enter your votes into the chat box, yes, no, or abstain. Okay. All right. Motion carries. Thank you, everybody, for your attention to that. Thank you, Daisha, and to Lloyd for answering questions that members had. Really appreciate that. And we'll move on to the next item. All right. Our next item is the reporting update on the HSAC approved performance measures. So that is, I believe, Lloyd and Melissa.
Yes, thank you, Jonathan. I just saw a message from Melissa that she's unable to join our meeting, and if we could, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to provide a report to the committee at this time, but so I would ask that we table this reporting until next month, if that's possible.
Not a problem. So we'll table that, revisit that in March. We do have some extra time. We added an item agenda here to provide an update on the COC cross COC housing first evaluation, just to ask if anybody has any feedback or wants to share how that is going. I'll certainly let you all know. My group we've received all the documents, but we're in the process of still setting up a visit. But so far, so good. Is anyone else on a team, across COC team, that wants to share any feedback or thoughts about how things are going for their team?
I'm on a team. We actually interviewed Tracy and her group for the Wake Healthy at Home, and that was a really good interview. We gleaned a lot from them, and I think they have a great project ahead of them. And then we have 3 projects being reviewed at Housing for New Hope. So we had our first project, our Streets to Home project, was reviewed Tuesday, I believe. Can't keep up with the days these days, but they came to our agency and they did a review. And so being on the other side of that was fun too, but it's been good, I think, so far. I think for our agency, we have all of our reviews set up. And then we have a team going out to Wake County government today to do evaluation. So we're wrapping up and we should be complete by next.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, we've started too, and Shantae, we got a chance to meet with her team. It's as I was sharing with Lloyd, it's been challenging. I mean, I think it's been good to review the documents. We definitely have learned a lot from other organizations and things we could probably adopt in some of our policies, especially when you think about the overall housing first assessment and including inclusive language as our population is diversified, and being able to not only document that, but also express that when you're talking with program participants or potential program participants. I think it's really good to do it. So we've been able to look at other policies and procedures to be able to glean from those organizations, like, yeah, this is some of the things that we could possibly change in our policies and procedures to make sure that's very clear and laid out. But I think it's been going good. I just think we could have probably provided as a performance measure subcommittee. I think this is a good practice. However, I think the time frame, as I shared with Lloyd, could have probably been extended a little bit more, simply because the number of people on each team and coordinating schedules with people. It just seems like for some organization, it's just there was just a lot of unavailability. And I don't know if it was due to how large your team was or what the team composition consisted of that caused it to be really just like there was no dates, there were very limited timing to be able to do it. And so I think if we were to replicate this again next year, I think more time to kind of make sure we could do it and just accommodate everyone's schedule to be able to do it, because it is a lot to set aside time to do this. And just like you would for any or other organization, or HUD coming to visit you, you would set aside that time. But I think given the time frame we had to do it, maybe in the future we could extend that out a little bit more, so we could feel a little bit more to and there's no perfect way of doing this, but I think more time to coordinate with everyone's schedules, because some of the groups, it's been difficult to schedule with.
I would agree with the timing, especially with us just coming off of it. It has been kind of rushed, but I do agree with kind of expanding the time frame for future cross COC evaluation.
And Lloyd, you've got your hand raised there. Did you want to comment or?
Yeah, I appreciate the comments and the feedback, and we are planning to have a fuller debriefing with not only the project representatives, project directors, et cetera, but hopefully some of the project participants that have been involved with either focus groups or phone interviews also might be interested in participating in the debriefing session. I think Tracy's all suggestions are going to be welcome. I think it's going to be up to really the committees like performance management and COC members, particularly the COC projects themselves, to recommend how often we complete a similar process. We'll certainly want to evaluate the effectiveness of the tool that we've used. I think there's a lot of things that could be looked at. We've learned certainly at COC level, for example, one thing I learned at COC level was that Alliance Health is implementing a permanent supportive housing project in the Durham COC as well as in the Wake County COC.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't know that, so that's helpful learning for us.
Well, the person who I kind of inherited this project in a
Sure.
way. It was funded, I think, last year before last, but it's been slow in terms of being able to take off. And so I was asked to get more involved with it. And so I'm learning like you, Lloyd, that we have a project in Wake County.
That's it's all helpful information, right? And
yeah,
particularly to as well as to create, I think, just more community awareness of COC funded projects across the triangle in the 3 COCs, and to learn from each other is I think hopefully will be a great learning experience. It is something new. I personally I'm not sure we want to do it every year. I think probably every 2 or 3 years is going to be often enough, but if others feel differently, I do appreciate the feedback. And I'm meeting with Rachel Walsh and Eric Hill, I believe is the gentleman's name. The partnership to end homelessness in Wake and Raleigh has had a transition of leadership recently. Kim Crawford has left the organization towards the end of January, and so they're kind of reorganizing the leadership as well. But generally the reporting we've gotten from the 3 organizations in Durham, Urban Ministries, Alliance, and then Housing for New Hope, are that things are moving forward, and that's the primary thing we wanted to see, and hopefully we can get it done in a reasonable amount of time. I think we know everybody's busy. We could look at doing it at another time, and it seemed to kind of fit to try to get something done, in the first quarter, that's 4 months of the calendar year, and kind of between everything else going on. HUD has its reporting seasons, and the COC funding competition as well, and generally in the 3rd quarter of the year, so the calendar year. So anyway, do welcome more comments, and hopefully we'll have a fuller discussion, certainly in the debriefing session, and we'll bring those comments to the performance management committee as well.
Lloyd, has that, I know I don't know if it was mentioned during the trainings that were facilitated, but is this being done like across, are there other communities doing it like this, or have similar communities practice this way of like doing a cross COC evaluation or assessment?
Yeah, that's a great question. As far as we're aware, through Whitney Patterson, who's our HUD technical consultant, technical assistance consultant, and she's based up in Connecticut. She's not aware of COCs doing something like this across COC boundaries. And there's probably some perhaps larger COCs with more resources, maybe using planning grant dollars to do to bring in outside consultants to evaluate the performance of their COC projects. HUD's, the tool that we're using is a tool that HUD released itself, I think through Whitney, I think shared that that tool had been developed by the Corporation for Supportive Housing, which is a larger national kind of
Technical assistance
technical
organization.
assistance organization. Thank you.
Mhm.
They developed the tool in the 2014 to 2016 period. HUD released it in 2017, I believe. And as you know, we've used a portion of it for the last couple of years, just in terms of how well our policies and procedures at the project level document that housing first is being implemented. And this is kind of the next step of doing that. And if we feel good based on the results of the evaluation, this evaluation, they're strong housing first evaluations, we can hopefully feel good about it. There's always things to learn from each other. One other point I wanted to make before I turn the floor back over to Jonathan or others is that we did finally work in the department to provide a gratuity, make arrangements for a gratuity to the project participants who are participating in a focus group or via phone interview, and we'll be working both with the evaluation teams and the projects themselves to confirm who actually participated in that evaluation process. And the department is going to be providing a $25 gift card to participants. So hopefully the projects are, if they have not yet done so, are recruiting project participants to provide some input about how well the project is using housing first approaches.
Lloyd, thanks for sharing that. We were hesitant to share, what type of, token of gratitude or, for participating in the process to our program participants. And I know speaking with other agencies, they were giving out suggestions, but I didn't know whether or not each COC was responsible for putting something together for the program participants or how that was working, but we'll definitely share that with our program participants, that there is some token of, appreciation for being involved and engaged in this process.
Yeah, the three COCs, to follow up on that, the three COCs agreed that a $25 gift card was the most appropriate gratuity, and that the COC should be responsible for that rather than the individual projects themselves or the individual organizations, just again to make sure that there's not any kind of conflict of interest or the organization suggesting to the participants that they can be less than objective. Hopefully people will be as objective as they can be, and so each of the three COCs is responsible for making arrangements for that. And I feel good about the arrangements we've made in Durham. If anybody, particularly those of you involved with projects, need more information on that, please feel free to contact me.
And one last question, Lloyd, will this be like in like a tangible gift card, or will it be like a virtual gift card sent to the program participants, or will you kind of coordinate with us to kind of get it to the program participants?
We'll be coordinating with you to get a tangible gift card, some kind of, more than likely a Visa gift card that people can use anywhere.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And the options are going to be we'll either work directly to mail the gift card to your project participants, or make arrangements for, if the preference is that you distribute them to them, we'll get them to you. So there's a couple of different options, and I sent out an email about that, I believe, last week.
Okay, all right, thank you.
You're welcome, thank you.
And I just want to add my comments too. I mean, certainly the challenge on our team's end has been trying to get dates as well. And we certainly understand organizations are busy and have limited time and resources. So I will be very curious to hear everyone's feedback again once we get to the end and see how we felt about, the time frame. Once we have a little bit of, hindsight. So thank you to everybody for your feedback so far and for being willing to participate. Well, that brings us to the end. Is there anything else that anyone else would like to discuss? Any other items, concerns? Well, that's okay. I do want to say thank you to Shantae and her staff for a great point in time count, as well as to Lloyd and Colin and his colleagues. It's always a good thing to be part of, and I appreciate. I know that's a lot of work, so wanted to thank each of you for that, and your colleagues, as well as those of us who were able to participate that night. So thank you very much. Any other announcements?
Just in reference to the point in time counts, as in the last several years, we are planning to release the point in time count numbers at the April HSAC meeting. I think is scheduled for April 26th. So if people want to put that on their calendar, we've begun the process of confirming the numbers, reviewing to make sure we can get it as accurate as we can.
Thank you, Lloyd. Well, unless there's any other announcements, I'm happy to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
All right, motion by Drew to adjourn. Can we get a second?
I second.
All right, thanks, Tracy. Thank you all for another great meeting and for your good work. And see you at the HSAC meeting. We are adjourned.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great
Thank
day.
you. Have a good day. Bye-bye.